Aloha, how you folks doing? My name is Armando, and in this video, we'll be talking about the Battle of Nuuanu. I always like to tell that story because not very many people know about it. They know about the Nuuanu Pali and the fact that Kamehameha pushed the warriors off into the Pali, and this beautiful painting by Herb Kane showing that scene, that battle. But this is the story of what led to that event, and it's called the Battle of Nuuanu. Now, the Battle of Nuuanu was fought in May of 1795 on the southern part of the island of Oahu. It was a key battle in the final days of King Kamehameha I's wars to conquer the Hawaiian Islands. It is known in the Hawaiian language as Kaleleka Na'i, which means the leaping mullet, and refers to a number of Oahu warriors driven off the cliff in the final phase of the battle. There are varied and sometimes conflicting histories of the Battle of Nuuanu. Now, prior to the battle, we're going to be talking about that on Oahu around the year 1792. The exact date is unknown, but the landing could have been as late as February 1795. There was a Captain William Brown, an English merchant, who landed in the harbor of Honolulu. As a maritime fur trader and gun seller, he made several voyages before from the Pacific Northwest coast to the Hawaiian Islands, in command of the Butterworth Squadron. Captain Brown landed several vessels on the island, and the ones noted are the two sloops, Prince Lebu and the Jackal. Okay. After landing, he made an agreement with Kahekili II, the chief of the island at that time, that he would offer his military assistance against Kamehameha for use of the harbor. So that was the agreement that they had. Likewise, Kamehameha also had an agreement, requested military assistance and the use of artillery from Captain George Vancouver, and in exchange ceded the island of Hawaii to Great Britain in February 1794. Now, the two rival chiefs met again as Kahekili died in mid-1794. At this point, Kahekili's son, Kalani Kupule, had control of the island of Oahu, and his half-brother, Kaiokulani, had control of the islands of Kauai, and that was through his wife, and then Maui, Lanai, and Molokai. They had pretty much control of those islands. Now, after Kahekili's death, Kaiokulani decided to visit Kauai, his home island. So in order to accomplish this, he had to travel through the way of Oahu. Kalani Kupule then set up trenches and earthworks on the windward side of Oahu, where Kaiokulani's canoes would pass. Okay? So both sides fought. The battle was stopped by Kalani Kupule. The two chiefs met to mourn the death of Kahekili. Now, Kaiokulani then discovered a plot against him to be thrown overboard by his chiefs on the way to Kauai. To resolve the issue, he proposed war against Kalani Kupule. This war was called Kuki'iahu and lasted from November 16th until December 12th of 1794. Okay, so He ordered his men to make a land march to where Kalani Kupuli was stationed. In the early part of December 1794, Kayokulani's army was confronted by Kalani Kupuli's along with the artillery of Captain Brown's ships. With Kayokulani being outnumbered and outmaneuvered, his forces fled and scattered to the mountains. Nevertheless, Kayokulani's army was destroyed. Okay, so it's like a civil war going on Oahu. After Kayokulani's defeat, dispute arose with Captain Brown over payment. Brown and several of his men were killed, and Kalani Kupuli took possession of the Jackal and the Prince ships, together with all their arms. Now, after 3 weeks of preparation, on January 4th, 1795, Kalani Kupuli set sail for Hawaii with a fleet of canoes and 2 ships, intending to make war on Kamehameha. But the ship's crews, now that's from the Captain Brown ship's crews, recaptured the vessels while they were at anchor off Waikiki. And then they sailed for Hawaii, where they told Kamehameha all that had happened. Now they traded Kamehameha all of Kalani Kupuli's weapons, which had remained in the ships, in return for supplies. Now, Kalani Kupuli had received prior warnings of the impending invasion from the chiefs of Maui and Molokai, and had begun building several lines of fortifications on Oahu. He had already begun buying muskets and cannons from European traders that had far fewer than Kamehameha. He was also assisted by one of Kamehameha's chiefs, Kaiana, who defected before the battle began. Kaiana had fallen out of favor with Kamehameha's inner circle, feared that he was being plotted against. So on the voyage to Oahu, his army split off from the Hawaiian Armada and landed on the north side of the island. There, they began cutting notches into the Nuuanu mountain ridge, which would serve as gun ports for Kalani Kupuli's cannons. Kamehameha I had begun his campaign to unify Hawaii in 1783, but prior to 1795 had only managed to unify the Big Island. So this is a big chance to unify all of Hawaiian Islands, not just Big Island. However, the civil war on Oahu, after Kahekili II's death, left that kingdom greatly weak. So that's all that infighting and civil war was his opportunity now, Kamehameha's opportunity to take advantage of it. Now, during this time, Kamehameha had been equipping his army with modern muskets and cannons, as well as training his men in their use under the direction of British sailor John Young. Remember Isaac Davis, John Young? Now, in February 1795, he assembled the largest army the Hawaiian Islands had ever seen, with about 12,000 men and 1,200 war canoes. Kamehameha initially moved against the southern islands of Maui and Molokai, conquering them in the early spring. Then he invaded Oahu. Now we're leading up to the actual battle itself of Nuuanu. The Battle of Nuuanu began when Kamehameha's forces landed on the southeastern portion of Oahu near Waialae and Waikiki. So that's where they landed first. So after spending several days gathering supplies and scouting Kalani's positions, Kamehameha's army advanced westward, countering Kalani's first line of defense near the Punchbowl crater. That's where they first met. Splitting his army in two, Kamehameha, so he split it. He didn't went two directions. So he had Kamehameha sent one half in a flanking maneuver around the crater and the other straight at Kalani'u. It's kind of like he's going one around, two directions, attacking from two sides. Pressed from both sides, Oahu forces retreated to Kalani'u's next line of defense near Laimi. Now, while Kamehameha pursued, he secretly detached a portion of his army to clear the surrounding heights of the Nu'uanu Valley of Kalani'u's cannons. Kamehameha also brought up his own cannons to shell Laimi. Okay? Now, during this part of the battle, both Kalani'u and Kaiana were wounded. Kaiana fatally. With its leadership in chaos, Oahu army slowly fell back north through the Nu'uanu Valley to the cliffs at Nu'uanu, Pali. That's where that beautiful painting that Herb Kane made, battle at the Pali, Nu'uanu Pali. Caught between the Hawaiian army and a 1,000-foot drop, over 700 Oahu warriors were jumped or were pushed over the edge of the Pali. In 1898, construction, this is later on after 1898 now, construction workers working on the Pali Road discovered 800 skulls which were believed to be the remains of the warriors that fell to their deaths from the cliffs above. Amazing, huh? Now, in the aftermath of this battle, remember Kalani'u escaped, but was later captured. Okay, so he escaped. He wasn't killed in that battle, but he was killed later. He was captured. Then this battle was the climax of Kamehameha's campaign. After this battle, his kingdom was for the first time referred to as the Kingdom of Hawaii. Very important event in Hawaiian history. But however, the islands were still not unified. He had to capture the remaining neighbor islands, Hawaii and Niihau, yes, to make it complete. First, he had to go put down an uprising on the Big Island, and then he began his preparations for the conquest of Kauai. However, before this battle could be fought, King Kamu'uli of Kauai submitted to Kamehameha, giving him effective control over the Hawaiian Islands. So that's when there was never a battle. I think they tried twice. I think the first time they went, and there was stormy weather and all kinds of stuff. So he tried again the second time, but then, as they're saying, Kamu'ali'i, smart. He said, well, made an agreement with him. He could still control that island, but King Kamehameha would be the king of all Hawaii kingdom. So that was the agreement. So they didn't have actual battle. Kamehameha and Kauai didn't actually go into battle. But anyway, that's the story of the Battle of Nu'uanu. Very interesting story. I love to tell it, and like I said, not many people, even locally. want to raise them on these islands. They don't know the story. They just know the. Everybody knows pretty much about Nuuanu and what happened there at the Nuuanu Pali, but nobody knows the actual events of what actually happened. So Kamehameha was really smart. He took it, several took advantage of the fact that they had civil war going on Oahu. That they were weakened. Lanikupuli and Lani, they were in war, and not only that, but he also used or utilized Isaac Davis and John Young. I have another video talking about those two guys, but that was the Olu Walu massacre uh, involved with Simon Metcalf and his son who was killed, and the John Young. That's how we got John Young. Um, John Young was looking for, you know, he went on to the island of Hawaii. He's looking for, he's a fair Americans. You know, people were killed that ship on that ship. But anyway, so that's how John Young ended up over there, and then very interesting part of Hawaiian history. But John Young and Isaac Davis, like I said, were very good advisors to Kamehameha because they taught the warriors how to shoot the muskets and how to utilize the cannons and all that kind of stuff. So it's Western technology. Kamehameha was doing that, using them as advisors. Also, when foreign people came to Hawaii, he utilized their advice and they would be helpful in that regard. But they also, like I said, trained their warriors, his warriors, and all that. So Kamehameha was very smart by utilizing doing all these things and the strategies that he used to conquer all of the Hawaiian Islands. Anyway, it's an interesting story, and I love to talk about it. And I hope you enjoyed it. The story of the Battle of Nuuanu. If you have any comments or questions, you can leave them down below. Anyway, mahalo for watching, and ahui ho.